Right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined from across the other side of the country in Fredericksburg, Virginia, by Rob Marcus. How are you doing, Rob?
Hi, John. Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Rob is the founder of Blue Stallion Solutions, where he helps mid-sized organizations move from firefighting towards to forward motion by aligning teams, strengthening accountability, and equipping managers to truly lead. Former Army intelligence officer, thank you for your service, sir, and corporate development leader. He has seen firsthand how performative leadership, I'll have that word, that phrase, and poor management drain time, talent, and profit. And your new book, Crossing the Divide, offers a roadmap for owners and managers struggling to scale without losing culture. And that's what we're going to talk about today is your book, Crossing the Divide. So you went from Army intelligence officer to corporate development leader to founder, helping companies scale. What did you see in the military that you said, this, I can bring this across into the corporate world? Or when you went into the corporate world, what did you how did you go, oh yes, we need to have some of this more military mindset in here?
Yeah, so it actually started before the military because I was in food service and retail actually
Mhm.
before I joined the military. And so in management in both of those industries, I got a good taste of culture
Mhm.
and some of the leadership struggles. When I went into the military, I I kind of thought it was going to be one thing, and it was a little bit. But as I did 5 years, and towards the end there, especially after the big OIF-1 deployment, when we came back, the Army was in a time of change, and
Mhm.
so it went from or it was emerging, going from an institution that put training first and identified leadership potential first, right? And then put you in a position of leadership, to an institution that was putting you in a position of leadership and then teach you how to be a leader, right?
Mhm.
And I always,
Yeah,
from my
maybe teach you.
so you said it, not me. But yeah, that's exactly right. And so it was no longer about potential. It was about, put somebody in the position, we'll figure it out.
Mhm.
And as that was happening, not only had I had my prior experience, but we had just gotten back from war,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, wait a minute, time out. This is not, I mean, this isn't like sales leadership. This isn't corporate leadership. This is Army leadership, right? Like, this
Mhm.
is where, as a leader in the Army, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but at some point you could find yourself with these people's lives on your shoulders.
Right.
And it's not about, put them there and teach them. And so, frankly, that's what drove me out. That's why I didn't reenlist. I left when I added everything up. I just didn't have a good feeling about what was going on. So I got out. I got into government contracting, um, and I a lot of money in that industry, obviously, but more of the same. And I'm kind of a realist, and I say, are we really? Why are we acting surprised about how cultures are falling apart, or why they're falling apart, or why these leaders have problems leading their teams, or frankly just dealing with people, right? I mean, a lot of them don't even really get to actually leading a team
No.
anywhere because they can't even lead themselves. So I think there's a gigantic gap in how we promote, and what our expectations of those promotees are when we put them in leadership positions.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I love what you said about people. Before you can lead other people, you need to know how to lead yourself. And unfortunately, that's not a concept that a lot of people that gets propagated enough. If you ask me, it's something that's often forgotten. You talk about performative leadership, and when I was reading out your intro, I was laughing a little bit because talk to me a little bit about performative leadership, what that looks like, and what's the impact of that on an organization.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Leadership starts with being a good human.
Hmm.
And I often tell people, if you can't be a good person, you're never going to be a great leader. It's just not going to happen. Leadership, and in order to perform, leadership has to be built on relationships, right? We can't put fences and barriers between ourselves and our employees
Mhm.
simply because it's a professional environment. You have to know what motivates your people. You have to know what problems your people are facing, not just at work, potentially at home, right?
Right.
Because especially in today's day and age where we have erased the work-life balance concept, and most people are moving towards this hybrid, live and work, it all works together, it never ends, right? Type of environment. Everything has to be founded in those human principles.
Mhm.
And so, performative leadership has to be built on that kind of a foundation in order to drive a team forward to reach high performance goals. However, most organizations, frankly, don't teach that, or
Mhm.
even, if we're being honest, right, they don't even necessarily allow it in many cases.
Right, right. And then you also say about a lot of organizations and leaders get stuck in firefighting mode. And this is something that I think, to be honest, I think this is something that's addictive to people at times. I worked in an organization years ago when I first came to the States, and the executive team were fantastic at firefighting, at crisis management. Something would blow up at a customer. We'd all be summoned. We'd all fly into Chicago or somewhere, all get together, do your full core press on the customer, get them all happy again, and then we go back and never fix the issues.
Yeah. Yeah, reactive leadership, right?
Mhm.
Reactive instead of being proactive. Um, and look, unfortunately, when it comes down to the numbers, sometimes that works, right? And so because it works, it in on the bottom line, it allows that type of activity to continue.
Mhm.
Now, when you leave, right? When the executive team leaves, there's still people on site
Yep.
who are having to
Pick up the pieces.
yeah, the fire is still smoldering. It's just not blazing, right? So they're
Exactly. Yeah.
they're constantly pouring water on it, and then they're getting burnt out. And
Mhm.
while they're getting burnt out, they're getting angry with the leadership team because they just kind of show up when it flares up and then they
Yep.
leave. And so, again, it leads to a situation where almost every employee in an organization today is living 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right?
Yeah.
They're only one incident away from quitting at any given time. Uh, it just doesn't work for the long run, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's exhausting, and like I said, sometimes I think it's addictive for leaders because they love that because it makes them feel important. And let's face it, fixing the underlying issues takes some time and effort and focus, and it's
Uh,
kind of boring to a lot of people who love that. Leaders who love that action,
it's
and
also hard,
it's
right?
also
Because
hard. Yeah, yeah.
it's that accountability word, that nasty A word that nobody wants to do because that's having regular hard conversations with people that are uncomfortable,
Yeah. Well,
right?
here's the thing, as you know too well, Rob, is the thing about accountability is everybody, if you say we need proper accountability in this organization, 100% of people will say yes. But what they mean is holding you accountable, not myself. I'm
Right.
not going to start with myself. I'm going to start with all these other people. Whereas accountability starts at home, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right in the mirror.
Yeah, look right in the mirror. You also talk about coaching first managers, and this is something that I really think is important because I don't think a lot of leaders and managers and those really understand what coaching is, have ever been trained in coaching. And I would say most people's last coaching experience, especially in the US, was probably your football coach or your volleyball coach or whatever shouting directions to you at the sideline. Therefore, you think a coach is somebody who, I tell Rob what to do, Rob does it. That's coaching.
Right. Yeah. And that's more mentorship than anything, right?
Mhm.
So it's that mixture of not understanding the difference between mentorship, consulting, and coaching.
Yeah.
And coaching is really focused on helping that individual get themselves to the right answer for the situation, right? How to figure out how to analyze, come up with solutions of their own, and overcome those challenges. Not doing it for them as a consultant would, and not telling them
Mhm.
how to do it as a mentor would. So
Yeah. Tell us about one of your stories from the book, one of the situations where, what the turning point was, and what did it teach you about closing leadership gaps?
yeah, so my biggest personal story, and the reason that all of this started between Blue Stallion and the book.
Hmm.
I suffered from some immense family tragedy in 2023. My mom ended up going into the hospital, and after a 6 week battle, we had identified she had two stage 4 cancers. We didn't realize she had. She didn't know she had, and we lost that battle. She was my father's caregiver, who suffered a massive stroke in 2013, so he's paralyzed on one side of his body. And 8 days later, I was driving down to get him up for breakfast, and I got a frantic call from my son that his sister, his 14-year-old sister, wasn't breathing. And so my daughter passed away 8 days after I lost my mom. That whole, roughly 7 to 8 weeks, I was in and out of work, mostly out, working behind the scenes and what have you. That whole scenario caused a lot of issues back at work, and of course, when the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So,
Hmm.
um, came back to a pretty bad, nasty environment, and ultimately had some things, decisions made, and that affected me in ways that I don't personally think anybody should ever have to have. And and what happened? So I quit. I walked out of my executive role, and I had had enough. And
Hmm.
so what that put me into a period of deep reflection. And what I ask myself is, I'm a senior executive in a $75 million company, reporting directly to the CEO,
Right.
and I get treated like this.
Hmm.
What does that say about what's happening to every other employee out there that don't have the status that I had, that don't have the voice that I had, right? And so I started kind of paying hyper attention to what people were saying, like on LinkedIn, and looking at
Hmm.
discussions and things like that. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people in the leadership development space, but the problem is not getting fixed for people,
Right.
right? And the root of the problem is leadership. It's the lack thereof. It's the misunderstanding, lack of understanding of it. And so, I said, screw it, I'm going to do it. And I went out on a limb. We started the company, and then the book actually came from, it was supposed to be an ebook, right? That's what it started as. It was going to be a lead magnet,
Right.
and as we were working through that, I looked at it. We were ready to go, and I said, "No." I said, it doesn't do this problem justice. We need to do more." And my wife looked at me and she's like, are you kidding me? And so what are we going to do? I said, I guess I'm writing a book. And she's like, what? So we did it. And so the book is really focused on that transition from individual high performer to leader. And this is the reality that I identified, that yes, it's focused for them, but the reality is that many existing leaders, no matter how long they've been doing it, have not actually crossed that divide. There's certain aspects of that they haven't moved on from or transitioned from, that are still causing them leadership challenges for their people. And so the book has impact for both sides
Right.
of the coin. So
No, and excellent. Thank you. And here's another thing. So, misalignment and poor communication. I think that's one of the biggest issues. And obviously, I mean, you were in Army intelligence. I mean, misalignment and miscommunication and poor communication
yeah,
are obviously not what you would like,
yeah.
and not optimal in a situation like that. But in a corporate sense too, and I think, and I'd love to get your perspective on this. Is a lot of people still think that they can communicate one size fits all like just communicate, not realizing that you have so many different generations, personalities, people in the organization, that you have to be able to communicate in multiple ways if you're going to reach people. And just the old kind of one size fits all, that just doesn't work.
No. There's one term, John, that I absolutely can't stand, and it's old school leadership. I mean, that to me is an excuse,
Hmm.
right? It's an excuse for people who can't adapt, who don't have the desire to get to know their folks, as I said, who don't have
Yep.
the desire to set effective communication of what is expected up front, right? The accountability starts day one.
Yeah.
So, and it starts with effective communication of what's going to be expected, right? So, it, yeah, you have to be able to adapt. We know that people don't learn the same way, people don't process information the same way. There's more ways to get to the right answer than
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
one. And it comes down to yeah, that single-mindedness, that ability to only communicate one way and not give up the control, which another word I hate, right? It's a mess for employees, and it causes instant frustration and anger and resentment, right? And so leaders, and I teach this to groups every day. You have if you cannot teach people in multiple ways, if
Hmm.
you can't adapt your communication to be able to get the message across to people who process it in different ways, then you're out.
Yeah.
Learn it before you lead, right? Because again, it's instant frustration, it's instant detriment to the mission. And it just has to happen, and leaders cannot be one size fits all. You have to
Hmm.
be able to adapt. um, and it's
And you have,
again, it comes back to the simple fact. I think it was Gallup that did a study a couple years ago, and over 60% of new supervisors, managers get zero leadership training.
yeah, no, I
Zero.
believe that. I believe that.
Right? And we go on LinkedIn today. If you go on LinkedIn at lunchtime and look at your network, you'll see how many people are dinging, putting up new certifications at lunch every day, right? Because they're in some online system and
Yeah, yeah.
45 minutes and they're a new expert in some
Mhm.
area. That's the type of training that we're giving people because it checks the box,
Yep.
because it's cheap, right?
Mhm.
And companies are simply scratching that itch for the employee. Say, hey, we're giving you this, we're giving you something, be happy. And
Yeah.
the employee is, because they get that instant gratification, that certificate. And that's how we're training people, right? And that's not the training I know, obviously, because I was a trainer coming out of the Army,
Sure.
and we're training people very different. And the big difference is, you know, it's training under pressure,
Yeah.
right? And John Maxwell's, one of his laws of growth, the law of the rubber band, we learn best under pressure,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Not sitting on lunch at a computer watching a video. So
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And one thing you mentioned there that I just wanted to come back to, because I think this is probably one of the greatest frustrations that people have is, as you said, expectation setting. Because how often have you seen like leaders, like they'll hire people or they have people in their organization and they'll say this is your job and set your, but they don't set the expectations properly. So what happens? You come back, deliver your work, and they go, no, that's not what I wanted. Or why are you doing that? Well, because that's what you asked me to do. No, no, that's not what I wanted at all. You miss and it's that. And again, it kind of comes back to, I don't know whether it's laziness or lack of foresight or what it is it, but so many people do not set expectations properly.
no, I think it comes down to three things. I think it's either they don't know how to do
Mhm.
that, right? That's a thing. Um, some people, as you said earlier with the firefighting, some people like chaos, and that
Yeah.
drives chaos. So they kind of create that environment where they're the one on top. They like flying in, right? Porpoise diving, as I would call it. But then the third is it's uncomfortable for people to have that type of a direct conversation,
Mm.
even though it's easier to do and start as soon as they come in. It's so funny you bring that up because I was actually on a webinar the other night. I was given a short presentation, and in the Q&A session, three people asked me different variations of the same question, which came down to, well, how do you get people in line with your vision and mission for your organization? I said, well, did you start there? Like, did you hire people who knew the vision and the mission and agreed and were bought
Mhm.
in, or are you trying to just bring people in and then turn them, right?
Yeah.
Number one, number two, and another one said, well, what about in sales? I said, how is sales
Yeah.
any different, right? So what are you talking? Like, you still have to set the same level of expectations. And then the third question was, well, I have contractors, I don't have employees. I said, even better.
Yeah.
What do you put in your statement of work for your contract? You're paying them to fulfill your needs and your goals, and you didn't even set them straight up front, and you're paying them to do it. There's a statement of work.
Yeah.
It's like it is so simple to put a document together that's in black and white, and you sit down together with a new employee or a new promotee or what have you, and you say, okay, Johnny, Sarah, here's what we're expecting out of you in this role, right? Is
Mhm.
there anything here that you don't understand, that you need clarification on? We're going to have hiccups. Nobody's perfect, of
Sure.
course, but do you generally understand what the expectations are? Yeah, I get it, right? I read it. I understand. Cool. Now you've got a platform to hold accountability as you move forward. And
Yeah.
it's not accountability is not getting in trouble.
Oh,
Accountability is
no.
designed to help keep the mission going and keep people on track, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like you just said there, a lot of times what happens is we'll hire somebody on a job description that was copy pasted off the internet,
Oh,
right? And just changed a couple of words,
yeah,
changed here and there. So
right,
we never even read it. We haven't really even looked at it. Now we've hired somebody who took the job or applied for the job based on our job description, and that's not really the job, but we never sat down and said, here's what the real job is, because again, we just never got around to it. We just thought, we'll just, they'll learn in time.
right. Well, and the hiring manager doesn't read the job requisition, right?
No.
They trust the recruiter who's not the one that has to deal with it. Like,
Exactly.
it is, but that's a function of a messed up process.
Yeah.
Right? And that could be laziness, but it's more likely just a function of the culture and
Mm.
the lack of process in the organization, checks and balances to make sure that things are happening right. And it comes back to that chaos and firefighting
Mm.
mentality. We'll fix it if it breaks, but we won't build it right to ensure that it doesn't break. Like, come on, folks, like, you're trying to make money, and at the same time you're dealing with human beings
Yeah.
whose lives are affected by their work life
Yes.
and vice versa. It's yin and yang,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So, and you want more from them. You want them to answer the phone. It's for 7 o'clock in the evening calls. You want them to do all these things. Yeah, I mean, I just
You want them when they're talking to, I mean, like a salesperson or customer service, or when they're talking to a customer or prospect, you want them to be excited about the company they work
yeah,
for,
yeah.
because
Nobody
you can tell when they're not.
Absolutely. And nobody does better for you, whether it's recruiting or sales or anything. Nobody performs better than when they buy into the product and the mission
Yeah,
and the company. Oh my gosh, it's night and day. So
absolutely. Yeah, well, listen, thank you, Rob. Some fantastic insights. All of Rob's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about you and what you do.
yeah, so as you know, as somebody who you've heard that has been through the thick and thin of good leadership and bad, we transform leaders to lead at their best potential and ultimately change the cultures and organizations for the better. So Blue Stallion Solutions, www.bluestallionsolutions.com. And I appreciate you having me, John. It's been great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks again, Rob. And thank you for watching and listening. And I will see you all again soon. Thank you.